I'm going to start for spec because I suggested to Dee that kind of made a little bit of sense in that the Bishops Institute is sort of a part of spec. So you have in your agenda that it's spec. It does sound a little bit James Bondish, I know, especially now with the new movie coming out. But it does stand for the St. Paul's Episcopal Center. And that used to be the location of the St. Paul's Episcopal Church, Spring Hill Parish in Hebron. And for those of you who drive up and down Route 50, Hebron is sort of before you get to, it's in Wycomico County, but it's before you get to Salisbury if you're headed east. But it is where the 1773 church building was that burned down in 2015. And the dedicated little group of people in that congregation fixed up the parish house and turned it into a very nice meeting room. There's a kitchen, there are restrooms, and it has a nice little chapel. And that's what was being used from the fire onward. But several years back, the congregation realized that it needed to do something, that it wasn't able to go on as it was. So they wanted to find a way to establish a legacy and to be able to do something for the community and for the diocese. And after some collaboration and some ideas and how the Bishops' Perusia came in to play as far as the Bishops' Institute was concerned, a new location was found for all of those, and St. Paul's Episcopal Center was established in January of 2020. At our first meeting, we determined that St. Paul's Episcopal Center, aka SPEC, has three parts, and they are worship and creative ministry, the Bishops' Institute, and community partnerships. So to speak a little bit about those, or at least two of those, I'm going to let Dee do the Bishops' Institute part. But the worship and creative ministry part, when we first started, there was still a worshiping congregation. What little of it was left for St. Paul's, but thanks to COVID and older ages and health conditions, they have not returned. There is a Korean church that uses the building, and they are now back to having services there, and they do something there 3 times a week. They have worship on Sunday morning, and they have prayer services Wednesday nights, Wednesday evenings, and Saturday morning, very early, actually, at 6 a.m. And so that is still going on. The creative ministry part, we had some ideas when we started in 2020. COVID kind of brought that to a screeching halt, but we do hope in the future to be able to do something. I know the bishop has some ideas from the creative ministry side of things, where he is thinking that this can be sort of a laboratory type of place where we can try out some new ministry related things. The community partnerships part of it somewhat ties into the worship part of it, at least as had we planned it. We were hoping to develop a community with some outreach places and allowing them to have worship at SPEC. That has not been able to happen because of COVID. But before it became SPEC, we did have a food pantry at St. Paul's. We have continued that. We have been able to do that throughout the all of this COVID time. We have the pantry twice a month. It's a relatively small pantry, but we have a dedicated number of volunteers, and we actually have a dedicated number of people who come in and are able to supplement their food by getting some from the St. Paul's food pantry. And the good news has been that one of the good things about COVID, I'm not sure that you can say that exactly, but thanks to Feeding America and the food grants that have come out for the last year, we've not had to pay for any food. We've been able to use grants for all of our food. as have probably most all of the food pantries in Maryland been able to do that. So that part's been nice. And I did mention Perusia, and the Bishop's Institute is in Perusia. So at this point, I will let Dee take over and talk about the Bishop's Institute. Is our third
Thank
part.
you, Laura. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for being present. And thank you for Bishop for giving us this opportunity to talk about this program. The Bishop's Institute was a vision of Bishop Murray. And my coming to the Bishop's Institute happened quite by surprise, but I am delighted to be part of it. COVID impacted us a good bit because our offerings were in person beginning in 2020, but we decided we would try Zoom. And we trained our first group of worship leaders in 2020 via Zoom. And after the first group, we had a request for another group. So in 2020, we trained and licensed 15 worship leaders who still are in contact with us. That's one of the things we say, is that we are resources for everyone, and we will stay resources. And we want to create a community among the folks that we train. We did not resume face-to-face training until this summer. And we have trained this summer 15 Eucharistic ministers and 13 Eucharistic visitors. We had 2 in-person trainings, one at Hebron and one in Earlville. We were delighted with the participation, and we have requests for new training, which we'll talk about in just a minute. The Bishop's Institute is our mission statement says we are here to to enable, I'm not going to remember the quote now.
Equipping the saints for ministry.
Equipping the saints for ministry. We're interested in being a training center in the diocese, both for laity, and right now the Iona Project will use the Bishop's Institute to do their group meetings. We have 2 sites. We have one at Hebron and we have one in Earlville. We travel up to Earlville to do our training, and we are currently training discernment groups for aspirants to ordination. And we have trained 4 of those so far. We are looking forward to hearing about the next crop that are coming up. And at this point, I would like to talk, Joanne, about the training we have coming up in the fall. We're going to offer worship leader training again via Zoom, because we've learned how to do that now. We've kind of perfected it, I think, although I'm sure there are going to be things we change about it. But there will be 3 dates. They're all Wednesday nights, October 20th, October 27th, and November 3rd. The time will be 7 to 8:30 p.m. The resource book is written by Bishop Jeffrey Lee. It's called Opening the Prayer Book. There is time for discussion. There is time for questions and answers. And because it's Zoom, it will be open to anyone across the diocese. Our Eucharistic minister training is in person. because this is a very personal ministry, and those dates, there's a November 13th date for the Southern Convocation or the Middle Convocation folks who wish to travel to Hebron, and in the Northern Convocation. At this point will probably be Earlville. Again, there is a resource book for folks entitled The Cup of Salvation, written by Beth Wickenberg Ely. And that takes place in the morning. The afternoon training is for Eucharistic visitors. This is a really, I think, a special ministry that is offered by people who really enjoy and find fulfillment in a deeply personal relationship with people who need pastoring. This is a special training in the diocese. We think you should probably be very familiar with being a Eucharistic minister before you sign up to be a Eucharistic visitor. Although if you take the Eucharistic minister training in the morning, you're welcome to stay for the Eucharistic visitor training in the afternoon. Again, it's the same 2 dates at the same 2 sites. And because we offer our training with no fee, we ask that if you're going to come and stay the whole day, please bring a lunch. We'll provide water and some other beverages, but our budget is not large. So, and to register, my email is right there on the screen. Please contact me. Thanks, Joanne. And I want to introduce Laura McCarthy is present, and she is the assistant director. Laura, are you there?
Hi, I'm here.
Laura McCarthy, Laura Dorsey, and Elizabeth Phillips and I make up the executive committee, and we're open to any suggestions or any requests for your training.